The relationship between doctors and sports coaches can be a little bit tense sometimes, and Dr. Mike did a video about Trampoline. As a sports coach, there are some things said that I would like to clear up a little bit.
As the Mayo Clinic once said, when it's kids versus trampolines, kids often lose. It's time to diagnose some trampoline injuries and give you some stern warnings about trampoline safety at home and at trampoline parks. Let's get started. Pee-whoop!
I like that he specifies trampoline park and garden trampolines, but I don't like that he left out the nuance of trampoline clubs, trampoline communities, trampolines inside of a gymnastics club, or organised trampoline sessions where you have a coach or someone that can facilitate trampoline sessions in a safe environment, maybe in a garden trampoline setting. But I recognise Dr. Mike might not know the differences or might not have thought about sharing the differences between a trampoline park, a trampoline club, and then garden trampolines organised and then just open.
I don't know how more injuries don't happen with so many children at the same time. Trampolines, dangerous on their own. Then they said, let's create a room for 1,000 children to simultaneously knock skulls into one another.
Now, yes, I recognise that's humour and that was for effect, but trampolines on their own are not dangerous. There either needs to be a person around or on the trampoline, and if it is being blown in the wind, like it shows later in the video, that's the same as anything that's outside that can be lifted by the wind. Now, although I agree that trampoline parks are very dangerous, there are lots of people running around and the people in control don't really seem to take their jobs as seriously as I personally would like as a sports coach. I don't think they're coaches, I think they're more activity facilitators. But I don't agree with the assumption that if you put lots of children in a room together on bouncy trampolines that there's going to be lots of injuries, because I don't think they're trying to hurt themselves, they're trying to enjoy themselves. Yes, mistakes will be made, which is where I think supervision gets involved. So I'm not surprised there's not loads of injuries because people will problem solve. They see someone coming to them, they'll move out the way if they see them, of course.
Danger lies in the design. Several trampolines are connected with steel cables or chain links under thin padding.
I don't understand how we can't create a safer We really need to put metal springs as the solution for it. We can't create something more bouncy, like a bouncy castle style thing.
Like, come on, a bouncy castle is not bouncy at all. Springs make you go up, they make you go higher. And when you're looking at Olympic trampolines, you need the springs. And the springs themselves aren't the dangerous bit. The metal has nothing to do with the danger, it's the padding on top of the metal. If the padding is thin, obviously it's more dangerous than if it was thicker. Now, when you look at Olympic style trampolines, the padding is still thin because you rarely, if ever, actually hit the padding. You're either off the trampoline on a big crash mat, or you go off the end again on a big crash mat, or someone pushes in a mat, which means you're on a mat, on the metal. So you just don't hit it. Trampoline parks, however, are different because there are so many trampolines connected to one another that the mats become a surface that you repeatedly go on, go over, and there's more risk of landing on something if you're going over it.
I've seen research articles that look at like an 8-9 year period, and they see near million injuries across the United States from trampoline parks or trampolines in general.
Now, during my undergraduate degree, I did some research into trampoline injuries because it was part of my undergraduate dissertation. I'm very familiar with the paper that they actually mentioned. So when it comes to the injury increase, there were 3 trampoline parks at the start of the study. At the end of the study, there was more than 1,000, and then they said there's more injuries. Well, if there's more trampoline parks, you're likely to expect more injuries because there's more opportunities to be injured on a trampoline. It also mentions increased injury risk in trampolines for recreational and sport, organised sport, but it's not actually organised trampoline sport. It's sport in an organised sport facility, so a leisure centre that could have some member of staff observing the activity, not actually coaching or doing anything with the trampolines, which I would argue isn't organised trampoline. That's just a trampoline set up in an area with an adult, which is the same as a trampoline park. I haven't seen and don't know of any academic studies or empirical research about organised trampoline and trampoline clubs and injuries in trampoline clubs when compared to trampoline parks, but quoting this study seems a little misleading. Of course, as a trampoline coach, I do have a bias.
In the last few years, emergency room visits caused by trampoline park injuries has skyrocketed. According to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, the numbers have shot up from 2,500 in 2013 to almost 18,000 in 2017.
But remember, these are trampoline parks. People have trampolines at home that a lot of times don't have any safety protocols. Like, we, from the CDC perspective, encourage people, if you're going to have one, make sure it's happening under adult supervision. and make sure there are nets involved. But there's even been surgeons that have been interviewed that talk about children flying over the nets and kids that are just watching as bystanders getting hurt in this scenario. They're warning folks because this is happening a lot.
Now, trampoline is classified as an extreme sport, so can you get injured? Yes, but you can get injured in all sports. I know Dr. Mike is engaged in martial arts and boxing, and if you're boxing in an unsafe situation, you're more likely to get injured. Same with football or rugby, American football, and some of my most serious injuries, I've trampolined since I was 11, so it's like a long time. I played football longer, but my most serious injuries come from football and cycling to school where I've been hit by a car, not injuries that I could really control. For me, I feel the doctors should emphasize the environment the sport, the activities are being done in, not the sport or activity itself.
At first glance, it could be a scene from a backyard barbecue, but look a little closer. That's 11-year-old Gavin Reynolds and his friend, Rode Hill, jumping on a trampoline when suddenly a strong gust of wind sends the trampoline.
Oh my God. See, like these are the trampoline injuries that you can't really predict. Or the times the children don't even use the trampoline, like they go underneath it and then someone jumps on it and they get hurt.
Now maybe this is just me, but you can predict that if it's really windy and the trampoline's outside, the trampoline is likely going to get moved by the wind. If we can see roofs get taken off, trees fall down, I'm sure a trampoline that isn't secured to anything will get moved. And in the same way, if someone is laying underneath a trampoline, underneath a surface that goes down, they are at risk of being hit, bounced on. That's foreseeable. I think about when I was younger and playing football. If you play football against a wall, if you kick a ball against a wall, it's going to come back at you. We learned pretty quickly that if you kick the ball, it's going to come back. So if you kick it really hard and you don't get out of the way, it's going to hurt.
We're at a trampoline park!
Do it! Just go for it! So, Harry, you've been in bed all day. Do you want to tell them why?
Okay, so do you remember when this happened, when I went trampolining?
Make the ground shake.
Oh, did he break his arm?
So it turns out I actually bruised that rib there, and so I'm bedbound for the next foreseeable future.
Now, I don't know the context that this video is made in, but the fact that Dr. Mike has assumed that he's broken his arm makes me think that he's looking for the worst injuries, the most severe injuries that happen in trampoline, and a bruised or cracked rib compared to a broken arm is a bit different. And I don't know that individual's personal experience, but I do know the channel, so they tend to accentuate or exaggerate some of the injuries and some of the things that happen. I know from my experience, when I cracked my rib, I could walk. It was painful, but I could walk. I wasn't bedbound, so I feel like the narrative is a little bit biased. Again, of course, emphasizing my narrative is also biased because I coach trampoline.
Oh no, why?
Oh, he didn't make it! Wait, help us.
Is he okay? I couldn't even tell what happened.
We got some special attention right here.
The fact that he's checking the patella is not very valuable.
So I get to the second doctor. He does some tests on my knee. He basically confirmed that my ACL was torn on my right leg and that I'm gonna need surgery.
The ACL provides support for your knee to avoid it from sliding forward, and that's really important because that gives your knee stability. If you have a damaged ACL, that can predispose you to having higher rates and earlier diagnosis of osteoarthritis later in life.
Now, I like that Dr. Mike is talking about injuries. Injuries are serious. They happen in sport. ACL injury being talked about in this video, but ACL injuries aren't more common or less common in any one sport. It depends what the person is doing, and from my research and doing my strength and conditioning degree, my master's, the injuries that happen in sports like football, like basketball, can be non-contact. So it's nothing to do with the sport, it's just the movement, someone changing direction and then they tear their ACL. So having it in a video, great for education, but I feel like it blurs the line between sport injury and just movement injury.
His two daughters to track practice is the slight hitch in his step.
The feeling of not being able to feel is mentally scary and scarring.
It's not just scary and scarring, it's both of those things, but it's also dangerous in the sense where you may not be able to pick up injury.
I jumped in on my second attempt, and that's when I got injured. Next thing I know is I heard a pop, and immediately I felt a hot sensation and no more feeling from my chest down.
Those sorts of injuries are serious and easily preventable. Have a proper foam pit, have a good foam pit. Most gymnastics clubs that I'm familiar with have a deep foam pit that you can't get to the bottom of unless you try. That is, to me, that's a trampoline park. It's so hard to speak about these sorts of things because in a trampoline park, the foam pit isn't really a foam pit. It's just a floor with a couple of foam squares. A gymnastics foam pit, a trampoline foam pit, an airbag is much bigger, is much more substantial. It's far safer than any of the pits that I've seen in trampoline parks. This is where, for me, I feel like the business of trampoline is taken over from the sport of trampoline. Instead of developing and learning skills, it's, can you just jump far into a foam pit? Like,
oh my God, and they tear too? You gotta figure that most people are keeping their trampolines outside. So they're not like well maintained, so that they're not gonna hold up well. They're gonna snap, they're gonna hurt somebody. You gotta be really careful around these things.
Now, like, yeah. Obviously, again, this is one of those differences between garden trampolines and a trampoline club or a gymnastics club. There is services, there's maintenance. Each club has to pay for the maintenance, and it can get expensive when you need to replace a spring or a bolt or some part of the webbing of the bed. Like, I don't know whose responsibility it is, local authorities or parents or the users of the trampoline, to check the trampoline isn't going to fall apart, but it's the same with any sort of equipment. Is the equipment safe to use? Is it outdated? Is it broken? Etc. And the reason I want to talk about this is I enjoy trampoline. Lots of people enjoy trampoline, and trampoline clubs are having to go through the same insurance companies as trampoline parks. But insurance companies, the people there, see the injuries that happen at trampoline parks, the safety and issues that happen at trampoline parks and on garden trampolines in situations that aren't organised, which is drastically different from trampolines at a gymnastics club or a trampoline club. So the way insurance is currently going with the amount of injuries that are happening in trampoline parks could actually prevent trampoline as an organised sport from being a sport, because it's becoming so expensive for national governing bodies and coaches and just people to be insured to coach the sport. My hope, my wish, my call would be for insurance companies to recognise trampoline clubs as completely different from trampoline parks, and for trampoline parks to sort their out. To be clear, I agree with Dr. Mike. Trampoline parks are quite unsafe because of the amount of people, the lack of control, and the people that are organising the activities aren't really doing anything to assist with the safety of the scenarios. Trampoline clubs, however, are different. Trampoline as a sport is different. I've said my piece.